Okay, so good morning, everybody. So, as you know, I like to start sessions with a little bit of silent meditation and then setting our motivation. And then we'll set the motivation, then go into the talk, and then have a little bit of Q&A at the end. Okay. So it's very helpful at the beginning of the session to give yourself instructions as if you are leading yourself and explaining yourself to yourself on how to do the meditation. So just watch the breath for a couple of minutes and remember to return your attention to the breath if you get distracted. So we'll cultivate our motivation. And recall the times when you are unhappy, dissatisfied, complaining, and see if that mind is a happy mind, a mental state that you want to cultivate. And would you rather feel a relaxed mind, a peaceful mind that was able to look at the people around you and the situation that you're in with friendliness, or at least acceptance? Would that mental state be better? So let's look again at the situation or the people involved when we are unhappy, dissatisfied, and complaining. And is the problem with the people, or is the problem with their behavior, or is the problem with the afflictions in their mind? And with if it's a situation that's disturbing you, is the problem the actual situation, or is the problem that you prefer that things within the situation are different? In other words, is something unethical going on that is making you unhappy? Or is it a matter of your preference? and not having what you want that makes you unhappy. So from this kind of investigation, check if your unhappiness is actually coming from other people or from the situation, or if it's due to clinging to your preferences. If it's due to wanting people to be different than they have been. Because these are all our internal thoughts. And although we cannot change all the circumstances external to us, we can change our thoughts, and in that way make the mind peaceful. And then within that peaceful mind, think of the situation of other living beings, their misery, their suffering, and the kindness that they've shown to you in this and other lifetimes. And then generate a determination to benefit these other living beings as much as you can, and see that following the path to Buddhahood enables you to do just that. And so generate the aspiration for full awakening, for Buddhahood. Okay, so we're on chapter 39 of an open-hearted life. And the title of the chapter is Finding the Best in Other People. So Russell Coates wrote some chapters. I wrote some chapters. This is one of the ones I did. So it must be wonderful. Yes, and incredibly profound. So the first sentence in this profound chapter, people are like pianos. They are. What they give back to us depends on how we interact with them. Okay. If we are patient and genuinely take an interest in someone, it's possible to bring out their best qualities, and interacting with them can be like a beautiful piano concerto. But if we are crabby and treat them poorly, then they treat us the same way, and our interaction becomes like a child banging on a piano. You've all heard that. You've all probably done it. Yeah. Okay. So this analogy came to me due to this story that comes next in the chapter. So there was a colleague, we'll call her Anne. Yeah, that's not her name, who me, didn't like very much. Why didn't I like her? She seemed to be constantly complaining about something. And as you know, I love people who complain. Okay. And was melodramatic about small incidents. Everything was like a big deal to her, especially when she didn't feel well. And not feeling well wasn't like, being really sick. It was like my little toe hurts a little bit. And she was constantly, something was wrong, okay? So what's more, she sat behind me in our classes and was always asking me to move so that she could be more comfortable. So, I was sitting front, she was behind me, she had her puja table behind me, and then she was, on the tall side, so her legs stuck out further, and her puja table, she had a real empire, on her puja table, with the text and the commentaries and, her lunch and snacks and water bottles and everything. And she always needed more room. Okay. So she would poke me and, can you move up? Can you move to the side? Can you do this? Can you do that? Okay. And it was never good enough, whatever I moved, however, it was never exactly the way she wanted. Okay, so either that or she was constantly readjusting her cushions and bumping into me in the process. So my stuff wasn't in the way she wanted it. So she would move her cushion, and she had, not only one cushion under her rear, I think she had maybe 3 of them, and then she had a couple of cushions under her right leg and a couple of cushions under her left leg. And then, of course, she had her big bag of stuff that she carried with her that had to find room because she had people on either side and in back of her too. Okay. And so it was just delightful sitting there, in front of her. So I realized that I was either going to be miserable for a long time or that I had to change, because she was already, she was older than me, and it was clear she was not going to change. This was her MO, and that was it. So I started asking Anne, when we came to class, are you comfortable? Do you need me to move? I thought rather than just, I should just try and be nice to her. Okay, and then I voluntarily adjusted my seat so that she had more space. So instead of waiting for her to poke me or whatever, I would ask if she needed me to move. And then when she was melodramatic, I didn't respond to Anne's melodrama when she said that she wasn't feeling well, because I knew the situation wasn't serious, And she stopped pulling that kind of behavior with me. So when I say melodramatic, I really mean it. There was a foyer, going into the meditation hall where we were. And when she didn't feel well, and we put our shoes in the foyer, everybody had to walk through there. And so a couple of times when she didn't feel well, she laid down in the middle of the foyer. And she was tall. And you know who I'm talking about. And she just laid down, and everybody's trying to, at the end of class, trying to go out and get their shoes. And she's just, oh, my stomach, oh, this, oh, that. Yeah. So I just started ignoring it, and then she stopped pulling that with me. With other people, then they were very concerned because she was a nun, so they would run off and get her this and get her that and get her the other thing. And she had all these little people caring for her, Okay, so then in the middle of the course was her birthday. Yeah. So at a gathering Anne had for her birthday, I asked her to tell the group about her life, because I knew if I didn't ask her to talk about something interesting, she would just complain about something. So I said, tell us about your life, because I didn't know very much about her life, And I was surprised to learn that she had been born during World War II. Yeah. And she was born in Germany. And as a small child, she had to flee Germany with soldiers following her family until they crossed the border to safety. This was really surprising to me, because she told me about how they were in a wagon and, filled with hay. And I don't remember if she was a baby or maybe she was a young child and they had a baby, but they were trying to keep the baby quiet while they moved until they could cross the border. And, it was really scary for them. I didn't know that, and I found that, quite revealing and also quite interesting, because I said because she was from another country in North America. So I was asking her, well, you got out of Germany, and then how did you get to North America, and how did you get to the States, and so on. So, yeah, I find hearing people's stories quite interesting. So as I got to know Anne better, I realized that Anne had a kind streak. Yeah, she loved cooking for others. Yeah, and she really did. She loved preparing food for our teachers and for the Sangha and inviting us all. And she took real delight in making the environment attractive by arranging big bouquets of flowers for others to enjoy. So the cooking and the flower arrangement are two things that I didn't particularly like to do, but she loved to do them. And it was really nice. I mean, before different events, before long life pujas and so on, she would decorate the meditation hall, with fresh flowers and put flowers around the throne and string them everywhere. And, you would walk in and the meditation hall was just gorgeous. And she loved doing it. I mean, she would do it, start like 5 days beforehand, buying things and preparing them and everything. And it was really beautiful. And it's not something that, whenever they asked for volunteers to do that, I didn't volunteer, but she did, and she did it quite well. Okay, so when Anne gave things to others, she was so happy. So, also she would give people little things, and she was very happy to do that. So I started commenting on that to her, pointing out her generosity and the delight that she took in it. Yeah. So instead of just, here's this crabby person, I started noticing things about her that I thought were good qualities, and then commenting on those to her. Okay. And Anne appreciated the feedback, and I began to see a happy side of her. That was not complaining. I realized that if I commented on what Anne did well, her behavior was more pleasant, whereas when I was critical, it was more unpleasant. Duh. Duh. She's just like me and everybody else. So it made me think, Anne is like a piano. If I interact with her in one way, beautiful melodies flow forth. And if I bang on the keys recklessly, disharmony is the result. And so I started acting, towards her in a different way. And her behavior towards me, at least, changed. And it was nice to see that happen. Mm-hmm. Yeah, when you join a Sangha community, you often wind up living with people that you wouldn't normally associate with in your regular life. We may all wear the same clothes and have the same hairdo, but we have very different personalities. And, when we sit according to our ordination order, and so if you're with a certain group, you know who's going to be on your left and who's going to be on your right for a long time. And so you better make peace with who's ever on either side of you. Otherwise, it's not going to be pleasant. That's why I told you the other day that there was one person in the line and I made torma offerings to her. She was somebody who was also very difficult. And people used to say about her, this nun is so angry. Why is there such a nun that's so angry? And people would reply, you should have seen her before she ordained. Yeah. So she was already improving, but she was, difficult. So I would give her chocolate. I would give her little treats and things, like you're doing a torma offering. And it really helped our relationship a lot. Okay. So sometimes our fixed ideas about people prevent us from feeling compassion towards them. Isn't that true? Yeah. It's like we know somebody, sometimes it's from one incident in their life. They've lived how many years? But one incident we pick out and, that's who that person is, and that incident is horrible, and I just sign them off. And this is what people often do when they hold grudges. It's what society does to people who are labeled criminals. The worst thing you ever did in your life becomes your identity. Even though, most of your life you weren't doing that action and you'd actually done, quite a bit of good things. We pick out, the one thing that we don't like. And then we just think this is the total some of that person's life. Yeah, we put them in a category, throw them out the window, and decide we hate them forever, or we're not going to speak to them, or they are inherently evil and corrupt and hopeless. We just, this is how our conceptualization works. Yeah. So we believe these assumptions, negative assumptions about other people, never doubting them for a moment. But as we've discussed, they often are completely false. Ideas concocted by distorted ways of thinking. Okay, the only way to realize their falseness is to challenge them. And some examples are going to follow, but I want to give you another one. Because as you know, I've done a lot of work with inmates, and one of the inmates that I've known since, when did I meet him? 2002. Yeah, so almost 20 years. He recently got out of prison. He was one of the people who was jailed when he was a minor, when they were he got what they called juvenile life without parole. So they just put him in prison. He was going to have to spend his whole life in prison. That was it. Because he and two friends killed another one of their friends with baseball bats. I asked, when he was 17, I asked him why he did that. And he said, I really don't understand what happened to me. They were in some kind of gothic mood or, something, how teenage boys sometimes get. And he had done this. And of course, he felt really bad about it. He had spent much of the time in prison doing restorative justice. And restorative justice is a fantastic program. They take some of the incarcerated people and over a series of different sessions talk about the impact of the particular crimes they did on the victims. Okay? And these sessions are often led by other senior inmates who are in the same boat and understand what's going on. And then at the end of the series of sessions, then they would often meet not with their victims or their victims' families, but families and victims who have suffered the same type of crime, although at the hands of a different person. Okay? And then they would meet together and discuss, and it was so beneficial because for the inmates, they could hear the experience of the victims and the victims' families, firsthand what these people felt. And from the side of the people on the outside, they could hear how the incarcerated people felt and their regret for doing what they did. So it was a program that brought about a lot of healing and a lot of self-awareness. So he was very, very involved with that. Yeah. Later, he got transferred to another prison and he learned how to make videos. He was making videos for the Department of Corrections. Yeah. So, they had free labor there. So the Department of Corrections had some of the guys make videos. I think he even did one for the governor. Yeah. And so he learned a new skill. They really respected him for doing that. Okay. So he got out. It took him a while to find a job, but he found a job at a local TV station near where he lived. He showed up for work, filled out the rest of the papers, and they were beginning to train him. And then they looked at the papers and they saw that he had told the truth that he had been convicted of a felony, and they fired him right then and there. Okay? So, it's such a good example. I mean, something he did, he's in his 50s now, so something he did when he was 17, is now the criteria through which potential employers judge his capability. Yeah, he's a completely different person now. I went to visit him in prison maybe 15 years ago, and the assistant warden escorted me in and out because I had a private visit with him, not in the visiting room. And the warden said to me, he doesn't need to be here. But because, okay, people know that he did this, then, getting a job is really difficult because you're branded. Yeah. So this is what society does to people who made a mistake and got arrested for their mistake. But we do it to other people, who may not have done a criminal action, but they did something we didn't like. But it's the same thing. We form a very firm, concrete opinion of the person. And that's who they are. That's all they are. Yeah. Of course, what was interesting in this man's life, and I find this with many of the inmates that I relate with, is their mothers stand by them in a way that is just incredible. The mother still looks and, there's their son locked up for life or whatever. But they love that person. They see their goodness. They will do anything for their child. Yeah, it's really rather moving to see how necessary that is for the people who are incarcerated. Yeah, to have that support of a family member. Okay, so it's interesting because society puts them in a box. You're no good, you're a criminal, get away from here. Their mother, all the mother sees is beauty. Yeah, my fantastic child. Yeah, it's really interesting, isn't it? Yeah, the object is the same, and people see the object completely differently. Okay, so just, thinking about how we, label people, put them in a box and think that's who they are forever and ever. Okay, so some more examples. So another one of my friends worked for National Public Radio for a number of years. And he was certain that one of his colleagues disliked him. After all, although they saw each other at work every day, they never said hello and they never made eye contact. Okay, so my friend said to me, he probably thinks I'm a lousy journalist. Okay, good example, imputing a motivation, a thought on the other person. He doesn't make eye contact, he doesn't say hello. It must be because he thinks I'm a lousy journalist. Okay. Either that or he's angry because I did something wrong, although I don't remember making a mistake that concerned him. So my friend had no idea why this behavior was going on. But my friend was sick of the bad vibes between them. And so, inspired, come on, you can do it. So inspired to overcome his barriers, one day he decided to say hello to the other man as they were passing in the office. So the man returned his greeting and a conversation began. And my friend later told me, he turned out to be a pretty nice guy. Yeah. What was most surprising was he said that he liked the stories I did for NVR. So this whole thing he had in mind was completely, hallucinated. He had nothing against me after all. Boy, did I waste a lot of time being suspicious and miserable over nothing. So this is the benefit of encouraging ourselves to go beyond our preconceptions and to relate to others with kindness. Just try talking to people sometimes. Being friendly. So one of my spiritual mentors, Lama Thubten Yeshe, had a 3-month course of teachings in India that he wanted his students to attend. So you might think that because monastics wear the same clothes and we all shave our head, that we think alike. That is far from the truth. In a monastic setting, you are around people that you wouldn't necessarily associate with in a non-monastic life. What's more, you live with them 24/7 with no respite. So this is the monastic training, You're in this situation. And so you have to learn to deal with it. There's no way to kind of exit left, exit right, try and get your way, although you try desperately to do this. But you're with these people all the time. You eat together, you chant together, you vacuum together, you study together. So for people with a lot of preconceptions about others, which is most of us, this is quite challenging. It's the perfect opportunity to transform your minds, Lama Thubten Yeshe would say. I sometimes wonder if because some teachers around them, there's always, people jostling for power and jealousy and stuff like this. And I wonder if sometimes they do that so that their students, have to learn to deal with these situations. And have to handle their minds. Of course, most of the students don't always do so well doing that. But for some, they get tired of the same old way, and then they learn to get along with other people. So during this 3-month course, which was called the Enlightenment Experience Celebration. Remember that? So I set myself the challenge of having a conversation with each one of the 100 plus people there during the 3 months. And I set myself the challenge, not just a superficial, perfunctory conversation, but really trying to talk about something interesting and substantive. Okay, so I told myself that I had to find something that we had in common to talk about with everybody there. And we were quite a crew. Really a crew. Look at her face. She was going into flashback memory. We were really something. Oh, God. I can't tell you all the stories from it. Anyway, so with some people, it was clearly going to be easier than with others to have a good conversation. But I kept encouraging myself and creatively brought up different topics in order to have an enjoyable conversation with each person. Sometimes I had to really force myself to overcome my opinions to begin a conversation because my mind was saying, that man is prejudiced against women. he's so arrogant and is always making disparaging remarks about disparaging remarks about women, but masking it as if he were teasing us. Yeah, you know that dynamic. Yeah, where they are teasing you, they are making you miserable, and then they smile and just say, just joking. Yeah, and but they only talk to women like that. Okay, or or this one is so bossy. Yeah, I mean, just constantly bossing us around. Or that one is such a chatterbox. If I start a conversation with her, I'll be there listening to her go on and on about nothing for hours. Okay, so these are the kind of ideas that I had about some of the people. And some of the people, like I said, were quite a trip. I won't tell you. I'll tell you afterwards when we're not online. Maybe I won't tell you. She can tell you. Okay. But I tried and I kept going until I had a good conversation with everyone. Doing it entailed revising many of my negative opinions of others. However, I discovered that if I made an effort, there was a way to connect with compassion with everyone. But it depended on me making an effort. Yeah. And if my first effort didn't, work, then, because I had given myself the task of having a conversation with everyone, then I had to try again, and I had to do something again and see if it would work. Because, if we really would admire bodhisattvas and want to be like them, then we have to be able to do this. Yeah? I mean, bodhisattvas don't form an image of a sentient being and then just think that's all that person is. Because the bodhisattvas will be aware they have a previous life and look at their conditioning and look at their kindness, when they were my parents, when they were my friends. And, bodhisattvas see that people are not concrete personalities. So there's a lot of space in there. And then they can have compassion for everybody. Yeah. So if we want to be bodhisattvas, we have to create that same kind of space in our own mind and not get so stuck in our opinions, yeah, and our projections and our cliques and all this kind of stuff. Okay, so the reflection that goes with this chapter is called Noticing the Positives. So as you interact with others throughout the day, make an effort to notice their positive qualities. Almost everyone that we encounter has strengths that are worthy of our admiration, even if we have a difficult relationship with that person. Yeah, you can look and see they have some talent, they have some ability that is really remarkable, that we can appreciate in them. See if you can discover their positive qualities, and when you find one that you particularly admire, let them know. Okay, so say something like, I was really impressed with the way you handled that situation. You did not get angry or back down when your neighbor raised his voice, but kept trying to communicate with him. Yeah. Or, whatever it is, like, you did this task on time and got it finished on time, and we really appreciate it because then the whole team can go ahead with what we're doing. Yeah. So even things that you expect people would do that often they don't do. Yeah. people are supposed to turn things in at a certain time, and they don't, and it slows everybody else down. So when they do turn things in on time, comment on it. Yeah? Or, you can always find something that is good about another person. Okay, so be sincere when you, you could say something like, the project you were working on was completed on time, was laid out in a logical manner, and covered all the necessary topics. Yeah. So that kind of praise is really good because it tells people specifically what they did that you appreciate. Just saying you did a really good job, doesn't give anybody any information. Similarly, when you're dealing with kids, saying you're a good girl, you're a good boy, you're a bad girl, you're a bad boy, that doesn't give a child any information. It doesn't tell them what they did that you either liked or didn't like. Yeah. Whereas if you state what the situation is, and how it made you feel, or how it affected you, then it gives the child or the other person some information that's useful to them. Yeah. So you say to your child, I really appreciate that you cleaned up your room because now I could walk in it without being afraid of tripping on something. Yeah. And then the kid goes, oh, yeah, that made somebody happy, and this is why it made them happy. And when I do that, they won't scream to me, clean up your room, you slob. Yeah, so it gives the child some useful information. Yeah. And so similarly, when you're working with other people, the specific situation and how it affected the other people around. Okay, so be sincere. False flattery is neither kind nor compassionate. Observe how this practice of searching for the good in others impacts how you see them. Okay, how you feel about yourself, and how it impacts your relationship with them. Okay, so when you make an effort to see what people do well, okay, how does it impact how you see the person? You stop nitpicking at all these little things. How does it change how you feel about yourself? Okay, well, like at the beginning of this session, when I asked, how do you feel when you're unhappy and complaining? You feel miserable. So when we're always complaining about somebody else, we're not in a good mood. We don't feel happy. When we learn to see something good in others, then our own mind becomes happy. Okay. And then how does it affect the relationship? Well, that's kind of obvious. We're going to get along better. Okay. So we have a little bit of time for questions and comments.
When it says to love others like a mother, having concern for others like a mother for her only child, it's like that, I don't know, mothers, I wonder, so like we have one mother here, if it's easier for those who have been biological mothers to have that kind of attitude, I have to train myself. I know when Manjikma sometimes gives the advice when I needed it in the past, more see that person like a little child, So because a mother has experienced the child from the very beginning, and it was often very, very kind and nice and did good things. And then there's this one action that the child did, like this prisoner, and that does not overweight, it can't overweight all the moments before. So the power of the mother's love is incredible, and that's what we aspire to develop for sentient beings, not just for one person that came out of our body.
Right. Right. Yeah.
I've always regarded this perspective about living with people 24/7 that you would not necessarily associate in life, to really begin to appreciate over time that in the lay life, I really got to pick and choose. And if something didn't go the way I wanted or somebody didn't act the way that I wanted, I could just simply walk away. And so my whole life was relegated by just such a narrow focus of pleasing me. So living in community, to be able to grow the perspective that this is just a very small replication of the innumerable different types of personalities and dispositions that bodhisattvas deal with and aspire to deal with. Mm-hmm. So if I can open up that it's not about me, but it's about learning how to care and be equanimous with everybody, is probably one of the most profound trainings here in community. Mm. And you get to see how much preference you have, how much attachment to things and the 8 worldly concerns really drive a lot of my behavior. And so that's been one of the most important trainings that I've had since being here.
Yeah. And that's why we say that life in community, aside from the teachings and everything that you have, just living together and managing to work together and organize things together and do projects together, all of that in and of itself is a huge training for us. Yeah. Because it requires a lot of adjustment on our side.
I just wanted to tag along what Venerable Simke said in that in those situations, I would tend to label those people as bad people. Mm-hmm. And the moment they did something that I did not agree with or didn't like or whatever I just pushed them away, bad people. But here I get the gift of discovering that they are not bad people, even if they do things that I don't necessarily understand or that do not cater to my liking. I get to know that doesn't mean they're bad people. I get to know the other side, which is what I didn't give myself the opportunity to do before. Mm-hmm. And so it really it enriches my own well-being and my own view of the world, actually.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
This brings to mind, too, I took a webinar yesterday on 10 pitfalls of diversity and inclusion. I was looking at it for our own in-house training. And one of the pitfalls that reminded me so much of living in community is how, just like in the example of the person who didn't catch the eye of his coworker, and so based on that, had a whole story going. And they didn't put this in these terms, but how in our ignorance, we also hold the self so tightly that we think the whole world reacts to the world in the same way that we do. So if I'm a person who walks around and catches people's eye all the time, and you're a person who walks around with your head on the ground all the time, I've already made a comment about how you're not like me. Mm-hmm. And I've made up a story about why you're not, or what that is for you, and the barriers that come when we don't actually take the moment to see what the good things that person does, and also do as you did, extend ourselves to say, oh, how come you're looking at the ground all the time? I mean, I wouldn't put it that way,
yeah.
but not to interpret that in a way that totally coincides with my view.
Right.
That's a tough one.
Yeah, because we tend to interpret every small thing somebody else does in relationship to the center of the universe, me. So that person doesn't feel well, they don't say good morning, and I think they're mad at me. I did something wrong. What did I do? Okay? It has nothing to do with us at all. The person wasn't even thinking of us. Yeah. And these kinds of things happen all the time. where situations really have nothing to do with us, but we interpret them through our own perspective. Yeah? We're working on this project. Somebody knows where the tool belongs. They didn't put the tool back there. They did it deliberately to annoy me. Really? We're that important that everything everybody does centers on us? Yeah. It couldn't be that they forgot where it went, or for whatever reason, they didn't put it there. It's got to be in relationship to me. Yeah. They did that. They deliberately want to annoy me. I get really, why don't they just tell me honestly? I can't stand these kind of games. If you don't like me, just tell me. Or if you don't want to play, be a part of this team, just say so. Stop the games already, And then we get all worked up about how this person is just playing so many games with us and being so, backstabbing, because they not only, don't put the tool where it goes. I know that they're going to, and talking to other people on the team about, how they don't like me. I know that, of course, no evidence, but, we can make up our own conspiracy theories. What? You think you depend on QAnon for all your conspiracy theories? We make up our own. Yeah? And then we get all worked up. And then we analyze every detail. Remember? Look how they had, their head was tilted in this way when they said that. And I know that person so well. And when they have that look on their face, this is what it means. It's like, oh my God, give me a break. But this is what we do. Yeah? Okay. Jump to conclusions really quickly. That we do quickly. And take a long time analyzing the subtle meaning of every word and gesture. Yeah. So I knew when my colleague put her hand on the table, I knew she was showing off her engagement ring because she's engaged and she knows that I just broke up with my boyfriend and this is torturing me. It's like, my God, somebody just put their hand on the table. But we've got to relate it to us and my hurt feelings and da-da-da-da-da-da. Okay? So it's called that, it's, how to make yourself miserable in one easy lesson. You don't even need 10. One easy lesson. Think that the world revolves around you and that everything people say and do revolves around you. That's the best way to make yourself miserable.
Our mind is underoccupied.
Our mind is underoccupied.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, so we fill this in with...
Yeah, with all this chatter and turning around and around and around. But if we have a bodhicitta motivation, if we really embrace bodhicitta and, engage with bodhicitta and really practice it, then the mind must get so big because we are concerned about all sentient beings.
Yeah.
That's my aspiration.
Yeah. No, it's really true. When you open your mind and you look at the people around you and you care about them, yeah, then there's no space in your mind going like, you get so dizzy from all of that rumination. Yeah. Okay.